edition of the Garden Report, breaking into the final week of camp, preseason, and all the rest with Sean Highkin, who I've been chasing the talk Celtics and Jrue Holiday trade for a week or two here since the trade went down, but still pretty fresh, still getting to know these guys. It's amazing how this all went down, Sean, because when I last talked to you on here in July, we were kicking around, could Lillard end up on the Celtics? How's this going to end up? And it ends up with Lillard on the Bucks. Of course, Holiday has to go to Portland as a salary. And all of a sudden, the Celtics are ready to strike. Brad Stevens said at Media Day, we saw this developing, and we were ready for all the different scenarios of bringing Holiday to Boston. So, obviously, we were talking Lillard to Miami around the last time we talked. That doesn't happen. He goes to the Bucks, who weren't on anyone's radar, really, in terms of Lillard destinations. And all of a sudden, the Celtics end up with the Bucks' second best player from last year, which is just this crazy sequence of events. And now Portland has Rob Williams and Malcolm Brogdon and a bunch of Celtics picks. So wild week that led to this happening here. Even Holiday just seems blown away with it. I know Rob and Brogden probably are too here. Well, at least Rob. But where do you start with all this? Like, what's like the first thing you're hottest on all of this? Like, Lillard ended up in Milwaukee, this Holiday trade, these new Blazers. Like, where's your mind go first?
Well, just going back a little bit to when this all went down, which now would be 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was the morning of the 28th of September that the Dame trade first happened. And about 5 minutes before the Woj tweet went out, I got a text from somebody saying, hey, like, a trade is imminent. It's going to happen now. And so I had a
and
little
you're just
bit
like,
of a
oh,
heads
shit.
up. I had a little bit of a heads up, but I was completely in the dark about it being Milwaukee. I found out it was Milwaukee. I found out Milwaukee was even in it when I saw the Woj tweet. So that part of it really caught everybody by surprise. You kind of find out later that the whole time they had been talking, but it was one of those, this can't get out. We can't even like have anybody know that we're talking type of situations. Right. And then it's like, okay, you see what the trade is. And then it's like a few more days of the Jrue, what are they going to do with Jrue? Because I don't think anybody thought that Jrue was ever going to play a second in Portland. It was just kind of, they were going to, reroute him somewhere. And there were a few different teams in the mix. Other team that I kind of heard was really heavily pursuing it besides Boston was Utah. And I think the issue with Utah was that Jrue maybe wasn't fully willing to say, yeah, I'll sign an extension here if you guys trade me here. I think if he had been willing to sign an extension there, or was more willing to commit long term, I think they might have had the winning bid. But it's just, they weren't willing to meet the asking price with that uncertainty, whereas Boston was and I just, by the way, I thought it was really funny that I did see Jrue's opening press conference in Boston, and he went out of his way to talk about how Joe Cronin and the Blazers front office were great to work with, and they helped, they communicated with him and helped get him where he wanted to go, which I just thought was really amusing and worth noting given all the, I guess, rhetoric that was coming out of Miami in the wake of their not getting Dame about how it was the shadiest organization, in the NBA and all this stuff. I just thought it was really funny that Jrue Holiday, who's one of the most respected pros in the NBA, came out and said basically the opposite. But all in all, I thought that Portland, for what they were up against with Dame wanting to only go to one team, and that one team being Miami, which is a team that they didn't like really any of the stuff they had to offer, with them being up against all of that, I think the Blazers actually did quite well between what they got from the Bucks and the Suns and then what they were able to turn it into from Boston. When you consider all that stuff, I think they actually came out pretty well from the whole thing.
Yeah, and they might be able to flip some of these guys further down the line depending on how this goes. Of course, it looks like Brogdon and Rob are part of the Blazers for now. The Brogdon thing surprised me a little bit, but those are both guys that could potentially bring back even more value later if they play well to start this year, even if other teams see them as a need. So it's I don't know how to say it any other way than pyramid scheme. Like, they're just bringing back players. And
here's a way that it's not. Instead of calling it a pyramid scheme, because a pyramid scheme is like
illegal.
Well, but the pyramid scheme is like, we have this thing and you have to pay this person who then pays. I guess it's sort of the same thing. I think it's more like one of those things about like, those buy nothing groups on Facebook where like you have a paper clip and I'll trade you this paper clip for this thing. And then eventually you turn, like you see the urban legend.
I like
of,
it.
like,
The paperclip.
Somebody
trade,
who turned a paper clip into a house. I will say that for right now, I don't think there is any imminent plans to trade any of whether it be Brogdon or Robert Williams. I don't think it's, I mean, is it within the realm of possibility that Brogdon gets moved before the deadline? Yes, but right now I don't think that's really something they're actively taking calls on or looking at, because I think they feel like this is such a young roster. They're trying to give Scoot Henderson the keys to everything. Their most established scorer is Anthony Simons, who is going into his 6th year in the league, but he's still only 24. And like DeAndre Ayton's only 25. This roster is all kids. You have to have one adult on the team.
Yeah.
And so I think they look at Malcolm Brogdon as like, is he going to be here long term for the next 5 years with this rebuild? No. But they don't think it's the worst idea in the world to have one adult in the room as far as a guy actually on the roster that isn't part of the coaching staff. So I think at least for the short term, they're going to keep him around as long as he's cool with it and comfortable with it. And so far, it seems like he has been.
Definitely. And Rob, something of a veteran now too, having gone to the finals and played in big games for a couple of years here. So 2 pretty experienced guys coming back who have been part of some winning teams, or a winning team in Brogdon's case last year. So that's valuable. I do wonder what you think of the return here, because if I was stacking up suitors for Holiday in terms of what they could give up, this Celtics package was pretty good. Like, you get the distant picks, you get the swap, you get Rob, who I think is a good prospect still, played at defensive player of the year caliber just 2 seasons ago here. Brogdon probably has some interest to other teams down the line potentially here. But the team that topped my list was Philly, just because of the whole Harden thing. They have some distant picks that probably look a little more valuable with this Embiid thing up in the air now, and we've talked about that a little bit too. I'm surprised they didn't push him a little more aggressively for this. Miami's Miami. It's sort of funny that if they wanted to go for Holiday, they would add a run back to the Blazers again, given how that all went on the Lillard
I don't
front.
think that was going to happen.
That wasn't going to happen. And even I thought like Golden State should have thought about it. We'll see how the Paul thing goes, but Holiday seems like a little bit of a better fit for them. And then even the Clippers, you heard their name floating around, and they have that distant pick too. And they could have got a point guard and a defender and facilitator and all of that. So the fact that the Celtics got in on this for Brogdon, a guy who they were probably trying to move off anyway unsuccessfully all summer. Rob, who at his best is amazing, but if you're relying on him, given the health and all the rest, it's a really precarious situation to be in if you have the short window that the Celtics seem like they do now. And a couple of distant picks, which if you're trying to win a championship now aren't a huge deal. It's not like they had to give up like 2 unprotected here. They give up 1 unprotected and a swap. So I'm surprised the price didn't get driven up a little bit higher, because it felt like the whole league was at least interested in Holiday.
A lot of teams were interested. It's just a matter of what was Portland looking for. And I don't think they were looking for just draft equity. I think they wanted actual players that they could either keep or flip. The Sixers thing, I don't know if I heard that. I know the Sixers called. I don't think they were willing to give up those picks, because I think they know that like they're going to maybe lose Harden soon. And then if they lose Harden and they don't get enough back, then, who knows what that's going to do with Embiid. So I think they wanted to protect themselves against that. I don't know where the Clippers stood in all this. Like, again, the other team that I heard that was pretty aggressive about it was Utah.
The Jazz, yeah.
But it was just a question of like that was, I think, a situation where like maybe the 2, salaries and veteran guys that were going to be coming back might have been like Kelly Olynyk and Colin Sexton, who are both guys that have value if you want to flip them too. But then it was just a matter of, I think Portland at one point was pushing to get Taylor Hendricks, who was just their lottery pick. And I think Utah didn't want to do that. But then it was like, if Jrue is willing to commit long-term to the Jazz, maybe one of those picks that they get back becomes one of those Minnesota picks that they got from the Gobert trade. Or it was like that kind of thing. And I think just from a both sides standpoint, Boston fit the kind of profile of the type of team that should be trying to trade for Jrue Holiday with the idea of extending him because they have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in their primes and signed long term. And their window right now is we have to win a championship right now because we have all this money committed, and this is what our priorities are, and that's the type of team that should be trading for Jrue Holiday. And so I think that's I think that's I think from both sides this deal made some sense.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, if you're the Celtics, would you rather have that depth with Rob and Brogden off the bench alongside Horford and Porzingis, or that great top six that they now have with Holiday, but a lot of questions behind it?
Yeah, but then you also you lost Marcus Smart as part of the Jrue Holiday thing, so now you get to kind of replace some of that production and some of what he brought there. I think it made sense for both sides.
Yeah, and you get the guy, if you're potentially going up against Milwaukee here, who knows them in and out.
You know who this is really tough for is Miami. Not only did they build their whole offseason around getting Dame and then not get him, but one of their biggest Eastern Conference rivals ends up getting Dame instead, and then their other biggest Eastern Conference rival gets probably the second best player to move that's going to move the needle in terms of playoff stuff. So that's pretty tough for them.
I love that story, and I know it's not of great interest to Celtics fans, but the whole Portland-Miami fallout and just how it went so bad, and Miami just thought they had the shoe-in for Lillard, and the whole offseason seemed to gear toward that, and then they end up with nothing. And I know Lillard wasn't thrilled about that either, and he had some comments or whatever about the whole way it went down, and he wanted to go back to Portland and whatever happened there. But man, did Miami get screwed. And if Portland really had that sense that the agent was just trying to guide him there and it was screwing the market and blah 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 blah, they came out so great, and whatever Miami was trying to organize behind the scenes there potentially just blew up in their face in a big way. And they might figure it out. I'm not going to rule them out because I did it early last year and they made the finals.
They'll still be pretty good. That's the thing. I think you can look at it on paper and say, yeah, they lost Strus and they lost Vincent and they got worse short term, but it's if Jimmy and Bam are healthy in the playoffs, they're still going to be pretty good. But yeah, as far as all of those, the way the summer went, I don't want to rehash it a ton, but Portland never really liked Miami's stuff that much.
You couldn't do with Hero what you did with Holiday here.
No, and I think now it's becoming pretty clear that was kind of the plan the whole time. And then I think the other part of it is, and I understand why Dame's agent Aaron Goodwin was approaching it the way that he was, because when you're an agent, your job is to get your guy where your guy wants to go. And so you do whatever you can to try to discourage other teams from trading for your guy. But I think Miami, from the beginning of the process, felt like because Goodwin is going so hard to try to steer him to Miami, we don't have to make a serious offer, and Portland is going to just be forced to take, not even our best offer for him. So, I think Portland looked at that and was like, okay, if that's the way you're going to approach it, we're just not going to deal with you at all. And again, I think it worked out well for everybody, because Dame, even though he didn't get to Miami, which is the place that he said he wanted to go, he got to a pretty perfect basketball situation, and he's going to have the best chance to contend that he's ever had. So you can't say, this isn't like a Blake Griffin situation where the Clippers just shipped him off to Detroit with no warning, and that was just not you could say they quote unquote did him dirty. The Blazers got a deal they liked while also getting Dame to a situation that kind of had what he wanted. So I think everybody ended up winning in the end.
Yeah, especially the Bucks, and we'll get to them in a second. I do want to talk about Brogdon and Rob, though, because Celtics fans, as much as they love acquiring Holiday here, they're going to miss Rob a lot. We'll get to that right after this.
Happen to action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, let's talk Rob. I wasn't devastated to see him go. I think you reached a point after 35 games last year, the 2 surgeries, an uneven year when he was even on the court, and he came off the bench under the new coach who seemed to like going smaller and went away from that double big lineup they used on the way to the finals. Always felt like he could give you more offensively than he ultimately did. Even defensively, a lot of the allure and impact he made came off the ball rather than guarding bigs on the ball here. So how could this go wrong, at least from a Rob perspective, in this trade for the Celtics? Does Rob become an all-star or double-double guy or get back to that defensive player of the year caliber? I guess it could happen. I just think the chance of that is low enough where you don't really worry about it. And Brad said they were only going to trade Rob in a deal like this for a guy you had to have. I wonder how, we kicked around here in Boston. Do you put Horford in this deal given the age and all the rest and maintaining the upside of Rob? But I even said, even considering Horford's age, even considering Rob's upside, Horford just, even last year, was still so much more reliable than Rob, despite Rob at his best really looking like something special here. So I think most Celtics fans looked at it and said, it stinks. Rob's going to go down as one of those great what-ifs in Celtics history, but it was time. And I wish him all the best. I think he's going to a pretty good situation in Portland if he gets to play with Scoot. And he seems healthy. Well, actually, no, he's already hurt. He
hasn't played in the preseason yet.
So, I'm just imagining, if the Celtics didn't do this, and instead of Holiday coming in, Porzingis, and all this new stuff and the excitement of it, we'd be talking about Brogdon being upset and Rob being hurt and maybe Holiday's in Philly or Miami or something like that. And it's man, you should have done that deal. So I was torn on the idea of doing this deal originally. Now seeing how everything's gone, I think it was a no-brainer, but I'm excited to see what Rob can do in Portland.
Yeah, I'm real anxious to see what he looks like when he actually gets out there. Just to be clear, I've been told that this thing right now is not anything serious. He banged knees with Jeremy Grant, and I don't think it is the same knee. I don't know exactly which knee it is, but I don't think it's this. I was told that it might be a different knee than the one that he had the surgery on and stuff. So, because one of his knees, I think it's his right one.
I think it's right.
He has he wears a brace on that is just, something he's going to have to wear, for the rest of his career. I think it was the other knee, and it was apparently it was the kind of thing where if it was a regular season game, he could have played, but they just have been holding him out for preseason because it's preseason. But as I haven't been told he's ruled out for the regular season, so I would expect that until you hear otherwise. Now, it's always possible that just given his injury history that it doesn't, but from what I understand, I don't think this is anything they're concerned about long term. Now, with that said, they know they're not going to get 82 games a year out of him because that's just his body is not going to hold up to it, which is why right after the trade happened, I started seeing all these questions about, well, so what are they going to do with him? Is he going to start? Is he going to start with DeAndre Ayton? Are they going to play 2 centers? And it's
I'd like to see that. I would.
Maybe they will in some lineups.
Yeah.
But Rob can't start because his body won't hold up to him.
No.
He's going to come off the bench, and that's just what's going to happen.
What do you think of his game? Do you think there's some real upside to tap into here?
He fits the type of big that they're looking for. They've want, you go from Yusuf Nurkic to real athletic, above the rim type, rim protector and finisher type of guy. I think there is some upside there. Again, the real question with him is always just his health.
Yeah. And the offensive aggressiveness, the conditioning, all the rest. It's going to be interesting because the one thing I like about the situation here, and, the fit with Ayton's interesting, because Ayton's probably going to be the guy they prioritize and
Yeah, I
give
would
minutes
say.
to and all the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Can he just go out there on a team that's rebuilding and take a bunch of shots, try expanding his range, try doing some different stuff offensively, because he has it in him. You saw the flashes in Boston, but it's so different playing on a team that's trying to win a championship and really trying to fit into a narrow role, and being on a team where you can get aggressive and try some stuff while you're losing a lot. So
Yeah, that's try some stuff while you're losing a lot is kind of gonna be the MO for
the motto of the Portland Trail.
this season. Yes, I've been trying to prepare people for it because I've been covering the league for a long time. I've covered rebuilding teams. I've covered teams that are in the playoffs. I covered one Western Conference Finals teams in 2019. I'm trying to prepare people for just, I get questions from Blazer fans or people who follow me and read my work about what to expect this season. And I'm trying to tell them just from the beginning, do not think about wins and losses, because they're going to record-wise, like, I think it's pretty likely they're going to be the worst team in the West and maybe even the worst team in the NBA. Like, you look at maybe like Detroit is going to be worse, or Washington. There's like maybe a couple of teams you can say are worse than them, but this is not a team that's going to win a lot of games. So this is really an evaluation year for, like, what can they get out of Scoot as far as the progression that he makes. And to me personally, I think that Scoot, the real jump from Scoot, where you're like, oh, this guy's going to be a star, I think is going to come in year 2. And there's going to be a lot of growing pains in year 1, just because it's really hard for 19-year-old point guards to adjust to the NBA level without making a lot of mistakes. And, there's like the whole Shaedon Sharpe thing where, like, he's probably going to come off the bench to start the season. So it's like what's that going to look like as far as his role? And then, is DeAndre Ayton really going to be able to reinvent himself? And then, like, are they going to move Brogdon at the deadline? There's all this stuff, but it's like they're going to be trying all this kind of stuff, but they're not going to win a lot of games. So this is a great, if Robert Williams, for however much he's able to stay healthy, wants to expand his game and prove he can do more on the offensive end, yeah, like, this is a good spot for him to do it.
Definitely. And he is Sean Highkin. Check out the Rose Garden Report, where he covers the Blazers for his subscribers. We just put the link in the chat there, and it'll be in the bio as well. Let's talk Brogdon. Again, bummer. Awesome year. Gets hurt at the end. How much did he want to just head to a new situation and, be able to produce at a high level again as a regular contributor and ahead of his contract extension here? I'm curious about that, because he gets hurt. You don't really hear from him all summer. There's reports leading up to camp that he was angry over the way the injury was handled. And I know he didn't love the fact that he came off the bench and, shared some sentiment about that later in the season when things started to go wrong. But he wins Sixth Man of the Year, really plays his role so well, seemed to become a voice in the room that was positive for Boston. And he was going to be here for a couple more years. And you see the report. Obviously, he was originally out in the Porzingis deal, so he's going to be gone in that anyway if it went through. But then you see reports after of them just trying to move off the contract, or, the talks came back up again with LA. So what are you getting back at that point? Like a Powell maybe, or something like that. So I would have hated moving off him if you were downgrading or just moving off the money here. Now, of course, bringing Holiday back, it's a no-brainer, and he's just the money going out in this deal. But still a guy who I think has a lot left to offer, especially offensively. Defensively, he really disappointed me last year. I didn't know he was that shaky on the ball with guys going by him and just the agility and all that. So I do think he was part of their step back defensively. And the playmaking, I know, drove fans crazy too, but I don't think that was really his role on this team. But just like with Rob, come off the bench with this team, score 1 million points, and I think probably end up on a contender by the deadline. Clippers make some sense, and of course they've had interest. Miami would really be the most compelling storyline from a Celtics perspective here. Like, this
again, are they going to trade with each other though?
Are they going to trade with each other? Because I do think that's the one thing that makes Celtics fans a little leery here with this, is if he ends up in Miami and along with the motivation of going at Boston, if there's any added motivation there, being on a team where you might really fit in and help, that has just had the Celtics number these last couple of years. So that's what I'm interested in. But for now, I'm surprised. Says he wants to be in Portland, says he loves Billups, and,
they have
he's
a
ready to roll
relationship.
here.
They have a relationship that goes back a few years, in my understanding. Back to when he was on the Bucks. And somebody, I don't know who it was, but somebody in the Bucks front office who's also a friend of Chauncey's, like, connected them when Malcolm first got in the league, and they got to know each other and developed a relationship. And at least for right now, I've gotten the impression that Brogdon is totally cool, coming off the bench and being the veteran on a rebuilding team. I don't think he's going to be cool with that forever. I think it's, at a certain point, whether it's at the deadline or next offseason when he's going into the last year of his contract, there might be a conversation where it's like, look, I did the rebuilding, being the veteran leader on a rebuilding team thing, but, maybe I'd like to go somewhere where I can win. And then that's something that I think would be facilitated. But for right now, he seems like he's happy to be there. They seem like they're happy to have him. And I don't anticipate anything happening imminently with that.
How's he looked so far? I see
Good.
55%, 50 from 3 on 4 shots only, but he's out there.
He looks good. He looks like Malcolm Brogdon. He knows what he's doing. What's been interesting about it is they've been playing him. He hasn't played that much because I think, in these preseason games, the veterans, they're like, even like the first game when they aren't playing, when Chauncey wasn't playing the starters the second half, he was still playing Scoot the second half because Scoot's 19 and he's never played in the NBA before and he needs the reps. But like guys like Ayton and Brogdon and Jeremy Grant weren't playing the second half, so you can't really say like these guys are playing their full minutes loads. But one thing that was interesting was that when Brogdon was playing, he would be the first sub off the bench, and he would usually come in for Anthony Simons, and Scoot would be playing off ball, which is something that I think they're trying to get Scoot more comfortable doing because they didn't really do a ton of that in the G League. But that's something I think they're trying to do.
I would think it would be the opposite, yeah.
Well, I think the thing is they're trying to – I mean, yes, you would think it would be the opposite, but also I think they're trying because they are not trying to win this year and they're trying to just like figure out what works and try stuff. Right. They're trying to make that be something Scoot adds to his game so that in a couple of years when it is time for them to try to win, that's something he's capable of doing. And so far it's been real interesting to watch Scoot because, the criticism that people kind of had of him coming into the draft was his shooting. And his off the dribble shot and his catch and shoot shot are totally different shots. Like I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like when he's taking threes on catch and shoots, he's fine. Like he's making a decent amount of those. But when he's trying to create off the dribble, it's totally different. It's pretty rough. And I wonder if I think that's something they're trying to eventually, get him to add to his game, but it's something they're bringing along slowly. So it's just been interesting to watch them playing him and Brogdon together with Scoot playing off the ball.
2 quick notes out of this because I am excited to watch Scoot. But man, you watch Wembanyama and you wonder what could have been.
They were one digit off in the lottery. I was in the lottery room.
It's gonna be something. I think
I've been trying to tell people, by the way, like I have friends. I don't personally bet on anything, but there were people who were saying like, "Hey, should I bet on Scoot to win Rookie of the Year, or should I?" And
there's a lot of Chet buzz right now.
Earlier on in the season, I was like, yeah, you know what, I don't, it's harder for big men to get used to, the NBA level, and like Oklahoma City is going to load manage Chet because of the, the foot injury that he's coming off of. I've seen enough Wemby highlights in the regular season. I'm just like, there is a 0% chance Scoot is winning Rookie of the Year. If Wemby even plays 50 games, like that's it.
Yeah, and I said, coming out of those summer league games where we saw him out there and it was a little sloppy, even if there's some offensive acclimation he needs to go through, and
he's going to be a top 10 defensive player in the league.
The defense is just
crazy. Yeah.
Like all he has to do is just run around and wave his arms and balls are coming loose. And
yeah. Wemby's going to. And by the way, I checked on it, and the Rookie of the Year is not one of the awards. It's subject to the 65 game minimum. So they could load manage Wemby and he can still win Rookie of the Year.
I hope they don't load manage Wemby.
And I don't think they're going to. I think Chet is going to be load managed because he's coming off the broken foot where he missed his whole rookie season. But Wemby, I think, wants to play, and I think they're ready to have him play. Scoot is not winning Rookie of the Year. For those of you who are betting on stuff, that's the two things. You should not take betting advice from me because, again, I don't bet on stuff. But the two things I would say is, one, it's probably a waste of your money to bet on Scoot winning Rookie of the Year. And two, whatever the Blazers win total is, take the under.
Yeah, you can find those at FanDuel.
Sure.
If that's what you want to... Nurkic goes out in this deal too, which I'm curious about. And we'll get to Lillard in just a second. But real quick on Nurkic, because I do find it interesting him heading to Phoenix in this. I don't get it from Phoenix's perspective because I liked Ayton and I know things went a little sour there. So maybe it was just about getting out of that situation. But the one thing that I am a little curious about, and you've obviously watched him going up against Jokic with Portland. But does he have like a little, edge against Jokic, given his physicality, given his size, and especially the fact that he played with him in Denver? Like, could that be a sneaky edge for Phoenix? That's what I'm most curious about.
The Nurkic part of the deal was interesting to me, and I think it's one of those situations where both the Blazers and the Suns just decided that it was time to do something else at that position, and that both of those players maybe needed a fresh start. From what I've heard, the Ayton Phoenix stuff was pretty irreparable. Like, I don't think it was I think it was a matter of like, they just wanted to get, they wanted him gone. He wanted to be gone. It was just time for that to go that way. From their standpoint, I think I obviously, yes, from a talent standpoint, it's a downgrade going from Ayton to Nurkic, but I think the way that you would rationalize it from their standpoint is their roster is so top heavy, where, you had Beal, Durant, and Booker on max deals, and then Ayton when he was there, and the other 11 guys on the roster were vet min guys. So I think the idea was that you take Ayton's money and spread it out among 3 or 4 other guys, because they get back Nurkic in that deal. They get back Grayson Allen from Milwaukee, who's going to be a rotation player from them. They got Nasir Little from Portland, who can be a rotation player for them. Like, you have a little bit more depth and a little bit more of a balanced roster. We haven't even talked about what is already the buzz in Portland about who the real prize of that trade was. And that's Toumani Camara, their second round pick, who came back because he basically had to be salary that was included from Phoenix's end to make the money work. And he's looking like he's probably going to get minutes night one in Portland.
Yeah, you laughed at that because he was obviously the overlooked one in that trade. But I also remember just sitting back at Summer League what was he? He's up with the Suns, obviously.
52nd pick.
He played well in Vegas.
He looked good at Summer League, yeah. And I know the Blazers brought him in for a workout before the draft, so he had been on their radar.
Yeah.
But he looks real good. He looks like he's going to actually earn minutes pretty quickly.
That would be really funny.
Backup power forward.
If he
Tom Haberstroh had a tweet the other night where he was saying that he thinks Camara is going to be the Walker Kessler of the Dame trade. And honestly, I could see it.
Right?
Yeah. I'm still kind of iffy on the whole Ayton thing. Like, obviously, from a talent standpoint, it's an upgrade from Nurkic. I want to see it for a long stretch of time, and I want to see, if he's talked for years about wanting to expand his game and wanting to do more than he was able to do in Phoenix. I want to see that happen. I'm not as like, oh, this is a home run. This is going to be, this is going to be a huge, he's this guy of the future. Like, I'm a little wait and see on the Ayton piece of it.
Yeah, the good thing is money's not really a concern for Portland yet. So the fact
money's not a
so
concern and wins aren't a concern because they aren't.
It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah,
like, he's just a guy and he gets a fresh start. I've always liked the talent, but how
he can put up 20 and 10, which he could probably do on a team like this where he's going to be getting as many shots as he is.
I mean, he was the center on a finals team. That
has
to matter.
Has
to matter. I lean Ayton defender, where a lot of the sentiment is gone against them, especially where he was drafted and all the rest. But I like that a lot for Portland. I'm excited to watch Portland this year. Also excited to watch the Bucks. We're going to talk about them real quick before we let Sean go here. But first, shout out to HelloFresh, who's back this week. Always love using HelloFresh, especially this time of year where it's so hectic. We're going to practices, not as much time to go shopping, not as much time to cook. So go get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients delivered right to your door. Skip the trips to the grocery store, which is getting a little more expensive. Going out to eat, of course, insanely expensive too right now. So try out America's #1 meal kit. which again has 40 recipes to choose from every week. Tons of fresh ingredients, pre-packaged, pre-portioned with instructions that lay it out. If you're not someone who loves to cook, you can still get this done in under 15 minutes with their quick and easy options. It's really a no-brainer. So check out their add-ons, their fall flavors, barbecue pulled pork, apple cider cake, some good dessert options as well there. And of course, it's all fresh. It's all to your door, customizable, along with whatever dietary restrictions you have as well. So check them out at HelloFresh.com/CLNS50 for 50% off, plus free shipping when you head over there. That's HelloFresh.com/CLNS50. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. So, Lillard, I don't know what to make of this in terms of how worried Celtics fans should be here. It's obviously an enticing duo. They took a little hit in the depth department to get this done, but when you're adding a talent of this level, it doesn't really matter. And even just watching them dip their toe in the water of utilizing that duo with Giannis screening and Lillard spotting up in the third quarter there, or second quarter rather, this is a really enticing pick and roll duo that I think might actually be capable of producing what I thought Harden and Embiid could have, that just ended up being a little bit more awkward and not productive overall. This, I think, could really be that special pick and roll combination where Giannis is all in on screening and rolling, and Lillard's making those great decisions on the ball, spotting up from deep. It's going to be devastating. There really isn't an answer for this pick and roll combination. Of course, they got great shooters everywhere. So this is going to be a menace to deal with, but are they the prohibitive East favorite, you think?
I don't know about prohibitive. I think it's them and Boston in kind of a tier where you can land wherever you want to land on which one you think is better. But I think it's those two, and then there's a little bit of a drop, and then whoever you want to put in of like Philly if Harden plays, or like if you think the Cavs are going to take a step, or you think the Knicks are going to take, like, I think it's clearly the 1 and 2 is in some order Boston, Milwaukee, but it's those two. The Middleton piece of it, I think, is going to be the thing that really swings it for me, whether he's able to stay healthy and be the guy that he was a couple of years ago, or if he misses a bunch of time and that, they have a hard time replacing that production. That's going to be the piece of it that swings it for.
And how many, in your time covering the league, how many? Yeah, we're just ramping him up. He's good. He's fine. He'll be ready. How many of those go well?
It's not great. I don't love it. I don't love his recent injury history, but to answer your question, I do think the Dame Giannis combination is going to be pretty tough to stop. And I thought they looked okay yesterday in that first preseason game. You can't really judge a ton off of somebody's first preseason game, especially when it's they didn't have Middleton, and it was like they only played the first half basically, or maybe they played like a little. I turned it off at halftime because I was just like, I don't need to watch more than one half of a preseason game. Like I'm good, but I think they'll be fine. I think they're going to be really, really good. I think they're going to win a lot of games in the East in the regular season. Whether they can, win 3 playoff series to get to the finals and win the title, I think that's going to depend on the Middleton side of it and the Lopez side of it, as far as like, can those guys stay healthy?
Is the defense a real concern here, or do you think it's something they can get around with the two bigs?
I mean, I think their defense is still going to be decent. It's certainly going from Jrue to Dame is going to be a downgrade on that end. Yeah. But I think the bet that they're making is that the offensive upgrade is going to outweigh that.
Yeah, and I've heard some takes from a couple of people who have said, I don't know if I would have moved on from Holiday to do this, and I think it's worth discussing a little bit.
That's ridiculous. That's like,
it's a little too far.
That's a little bit of a galaxy brain thing where it's like what are you talking about? Like Dame and Giannis together? Oh yeah, I don't want to do that because it might be a little bit of a. Come on.
They had to do it, right?
And if you have this, especially with Giannis, doing those interviews this summer where he was like, I don't know if I'm going to stay or not. And it's like, okay, and then you have the opportunity to get Dame. Like, yeah, do it.
No, yeah, you kind of.
Because now that probably takes Giannis leaving next summer off the board now.
Oh, definitely. So, especially since Lillard's locked in for so long.
That's what you had to make that move if you're and there's a good chance it works out for him.
And Holiday, so this is the real pause I have about Holiday, and it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. 33, expiring contract if he opts out. so could go into free agency next summer. Can't technically extend till April, so maybe something's agreed behind the
I
scenes.
think
Maybe
there's
a wink, wink.
probably an understanding that they're going to work something out when it's time to work something out.
Yeah, and I just wonder how big it's going to be, because he technically is eligible to get up to 50 with the 140% raise here, which I don't think would happen. But if he plays great this year, and he's coming off of multiple amazing seasons and a championship in 2021, that's a hefty price for a guy who's in his mid-30s. And you got Horford now, and it's a little bit of an older roster that's certainly getting more expensive now. And I do like the idea of some teams. Boston's part of this group now. Phoenix did it. That despite all the panic and fear-mongering over the second apron, and some of the penalties are tough here, is it really that prohibitive to where if you have the talent and it's really time to go for it, you're just going to blow through it and deal with it? I think that's the better move than trying to cut along the edges and stay below that line and avoid, I don't know, what is it, just a mid-level exception you can't use and not being able to get a buyout guy. And the trade stuff is scary, if you get stuck. But I don't know. Nothing scares me enough here to where I'm concerned with the Celtics expanding the salary of their team the way they have, especially where it seems like ownership's willing to pay the tax.
Yeah, no, I think just for what their timeline is, they just signed Jaylen Brown to that big extension, and this is the time to go for it. And Jrue, I don't think Jrue Holiday is going to be getting $50 million a year on his next extension.
I don't think so either.
I know that's something he's eligible for, but I think it might be a situation where whatever he's making now, like low 30s, they might just do that for 3 more years at his age as, the third guy on this team, because they're going to have to pay Tatum soon too, right?
Yeah, his deal will begin 25-26, so they got 1 more year after this with him.
So there's just all this, like, I think they'll probably figure something out. But yeah, I mean, the Celtics are absolutely in the position where this is the kind of thing they should be doing, is just going forward and trying to get as much high-end talent as possible and worrying about the cost later.
Definitely. And we'll see how Joe does. Seems more comfortable this year. Got the staff. They're going to try some stuff, shake up some stuff. They have new assistants. So that all seems to be going well in camp so far. We are through 2 weeks of camp. Week 3 starts now. Celtics play the Knicks tomorrow. When's the next Blazers game?
Tonight.
Oh, perfect. So you can go check out. No, Rob's probably not playing, right?
I would be shocked if he is. I won't be even watching that. Doing tonight.
Sean is anti-preseason.
I'm not even anti-preseason. I just had tickets to a show tonight, and I was just like, I'm not.
So do I. So I will not be watching.
I'm
the Blazers
not skipping
either.
that to watch a preseason game. Like, I'm sorry.
Luckily, the regular season is just about a week away. Sean's gonna have all your Blazers coverage, which will be of interest to Celtics fans now, which is awesome. So go subscribe to the Rose Garden Report if you want to keep up with Rob, how Brogdon's doing this year, and just how that interesting young roster is. I think those are always fun teams to follow. And, of course, it's 10 o'clock games and all the rest. So go subscribe and keep tabs if you can't watch every game out there. It's a good way to do it. I put the link in the bio description as well as the chat here. Sean, always great talking to you. Thanks for taking the time today, and we'll catch up soon. Unfortunately, Celtics, Blazers in Boston until April. So hopefully Rob's still there and able to make his return to Boston with them.
We'll see.
All right. See you guys soon. Post game tomorrow. We'll see you then. And stay tuned for press.